Om Satchidananda Rupaya Vishwotpatyadi Hetave Tapatraya Vinashaya Shri Krishnaya Vayam Numaha. Janmadhyasya yatonvayaditarataschaarteshvabhignaswarat Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye Muhyanti Yatsurayaha Tejo Vari Mridam Yatha Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Mrisha Dhamna Svena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi Dharma Projita Kaitavotra Paramo Nirmatsaranam Satam Vedyam Vastavamatra Vastu Shivadam Tapatrayon Mulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kim Vaparerishwaraha Sadyo Hridyavarudyate Trakritibihi Shushrushubistatkshanat. Hari Om and greetings from Cleveland. Throughout Sanatana Dharma, when you see icons, when you see paintings, you often see Padmanabha. Who is Padmanabha? Bhagwan Vishnu, and there is an emanation from his navel. Now, technically, that seems like a strange visual, something growing out of your navel. But there's depth to this. The word nabha means space, and nabhi is where space is focused. Where is God? God is everywhere, right? So then we quote, why should we go to the mandir? Why should we attend Srimad Bhagavatam? You believe God is everywhere, but do you have faith? Is that your experience? It's not. So you need that support, that focus space where you can feel God. At a mandir, in our classes. That's why Nabhi is showcased for us to tune into Nabha. Okay, I'll simplify. Throughout Sanatana Dharma, what is the most popular flower? A lotus, right? Are you tired of hearing eyes being described as lotuses, feet being described as lotuses? Why so much use of the word lotus? What is the Sanskrit word for lotus? Padma or Kamala. What does mala mean? Dirt, that which is murky. And ka is actually the short word for kam, which means good space, happy space. Kam is another word for Brahman. So a kamala is used to show that Brahman or infinity is not just that which is above the dirt, but that dirt itself. Now, how this relates to us. With Nabhi, I told you, you have to go to the mandir to feel Bhagwan. With Kamala, I'm teaching you, telling you that you should feel Bhagwan in your own homes, in your own cars, with your own relationships. Where you feel Bhagwan is not, where there's agitations and there's impurity, but growing within that, present within that is infinity, is Bhagwan. So Nabhi and Kamala have a lot of significance. If you're not feeling what I'm trying to share right now, this course is a course in seeing the big picture. Through such examples, through such details, to start to tune into that big picture. One who only sees the small picture focuses on my and I. My piano, my prestige, I did this, I'm going to do this. But once you start to see the big picture, my and I is substituted by his and he. My kids are his kids. My community is his community. And finally, he am I. We say, soham hamsaha. I am he am I. As we complete the 4th skanda, as we slowly complete a full year of Srimad Bhagavatam, a gauge to know whether you're tuned into this experience is if you take my and I less seriously, and you take his and he more seriously. It's a reorientation of what we think is ours, what we think we are. Raja Prithu is one who followed dharma, initiated dharma, and appreciated dharma. It reminds me of 3 generations. It's like a grandparent who follows dharma. They initiate dharma by encouraging their kids to be the same way, and they appreciate dharma by appreciating their grandkids to follow dharma also. A grandparent probably cannot initiate a grandkid to follow dharma, but can certainly appreciate them following dharma. And because he lived in such a holistic way, his Devi, that is Devi Archie, she was exactly the same. Both of them were freed once and for all. On the other hand, we have Barhishan, who's given this adjective, Prachina. Prachina means east. He's so ritualistic that everything he does has to be directed to the east. It's like us with Vastu Shastra, right? Or Feng Shui. We can only buy a house where the door opens towards the sunrise. And if we don't, we will be unhappy. You'll complain there's too much heat in the summer if your home opens towards the sun. I like that adjective. Some of us are very much like that. So locked into rituals. And Rishi Narada comes to Prachina and tells him a story about a maiden. This maiden holds on to Puranjana. This maiden tells Puranjana there are only 3 purposes in life. What are the 3 purposes she tells Puranjana? The purpose of life is dharma, artha, kama. She never says moksha. Says the purpose of life is pleasure, possession, and position. And Puranjana, he's lost his capability to think. And so he's described as mriga yatha, that he's become an animal. He's become the pet to this maiden. And such details are given that when she chews food, he chews food. When she drinks, he drinks. He's no longer a human. He's like an animal. And I know you're feeling that this is a story. You know those days when you're super busy? Do you think about your day? Do you think about who you are? Don't you eat while you're driving? Don't you forget to drink water and look after your health that day? We may not be described like an animal, but we're more like a machine, isn't it? We're a robot that runs errands from start to finish. So wrapping up this story, and this whole skanda actually, we're on the 4th skanda, we're on the 29th adhyaya, and I'm reading the 5th shloka, 4:29:5. Buddhim tu pramadam vidyan mamaham iti yat kritam yamadishtaya dehesmin puman bhunteksha birgunan. What's shared here is Rishi Narada is explaining to Prachina the symbolism of this story he's telling, and he specifically says that maiden is known as Buddhi. This Buddhi is filled with pramada. And a Buddhi that's filled with pramada, all that Buddhi does is indulge. Bhungte, bhoga. I'll explain some more, okay? As Rishi Narada is telling Prachina this story, there's one portion of this story where Purajana goes hunting. Now let's rewind. What are leaders not supposed to do? There's a few behaviors, some lifestyle engagements they're not supposed to do. What is one of them? Hunting. Raja Parikshita is not to hunt, but what did he do? Hunt. And the ramifications of that, here too, Purajana goes hunting, but Srimad Bhagavatam is so lovely. What is shared here is, for people like Puranjana, who are Rajasic, they're allowed to go hunting. They're allowed to indulge as long as they have the mindset that this is to wean them off of hunting, to wean them off of alcohol, and on and on and on. And why this is such a cool message, it's so psychological, no? If I tell all of us, starting today, you have to be fully vegan, it'd be too difficult for us. But if I say 1 meal a day, no dairy, possible, correct? And you keep on weaning yourself off of that. So that detail is given. Prachina ends up marrying this maiden, and they have lots and lots and lots of kids and grandkids and possessions. And as he expanded whose is his, what is his, he needed to engage in much more yajna. But this was not the yajna we're used to, like a jnana yajna. The yajna that he was engaged in involved a lot of animal slaughter, a lot of wastage. And I share a reference to this. At Chinmaya Dhara, when we celebrate Mahashivratri, what material do we put? And even here in Chinmaya Mission Cleveland, what material do we put on Bhagavan Shiva? We put vibhuti, correct? Once you use milk, you can't reuse milk essentially. When I pour milk for Vyasa in the morning, if it sits out too long, I can't re-give that milk to him. Vibhuti, once you use it, you can keep on using it. There's no wastage there, correct? It is being used fully. So this is what's being highlighted with Prachina, with Puranjana, wasteful, inconsiderate of the environment. In his indulgence, in his carelessness, his kingdom is attacked and he is killed. Puranjana is killed, but he's reborn. What do you think he's reborn as? He's reborn as a Devi. Because the thought you have the most of in your life, you're reborn as that. Now, he was a highly indulgent person, no? Highly infatuated with this maiden, so all he thought about was Devi, Devi, Devi. So in his next lifetime, he became Puranjani. So Puranjana becomes Puranjani. So whatever your gender is right now, it may be indicative of what you were thinking about in your last lifetime. And what's awesome about that is that there should be no disparity in gender, isn't it? In my last lifetime, I was probably a Devi. In my next lifetime, I'll probably be a Devi. That's assuming I'm not going to be enlightened. That's assuming that we're not going to be enlightened. So where does being oppressive even fit into this scenario? Now, Paranjani, she is married to a really noble king, and he ends up passing away. She doesn't know what to do with herself. That's where this story is led to. She actually sets up this funeral pyre and puts her husband's body in there and lights it on fire. And she's so lost with, what do I do now? And a Brahmana comes to her and says, why are you grieving? Do you know who you are? Do you know who I am? And here's where Rishi Narada starts to explain to Prachina the symbolism of this whole story. Okay? So now note these details. Number one, who is Puranjana to you? Puranjana is the jiva, is the ego. So who's Puranjana? Insert your name. The Pura, the city that he wants to live in, relating to us, what is that? This body. He's looking for a Pura with 9 gates. Don't you have 9 gates? 7 on your face and 2 in your lower body. So that Pura is actually this Deha. Where does a Jiva live? In this Deha, correct? The Sakhis, the 10 friends of this maiden, who are they? What do you have 10 of? Your sense organs. You have 5 organs of perception and 5 organs of action. And that special security guard with 5 heads, that Ahi, what do you have 5 of? Pranas, your breath. Okay? So Puranjana is the ego. The ego is looking for a home. That becomes the body. This body has 10 sense organs and 5 physiological functions. Now, who is this maiden? This maiden is buddhi, as I mentioned, is the intellect, but not the intellect that we appreciate. It's an intellect that's filled with ignorance, pramada. And an intellect that's filled with ignorance, what word is contained within the word pramada? Mada. Someone who is arrogant. Someone who's arrogant. This type of buddhi makes us controlling. Isn't she controlling of him? For us too. The more controlling we are, the more we have this type of buddhi. The more surrendering we are, the less we have this type of buddhi. And most importantly, remember, Puranjana had an unnamed friend. Puranjani. Now she's at that funeral pyre. She doesn't know what to do with herself. And this Brahmana comes. Who is that unnamed friend? Who is this Brahmana? Ishvara and Guru. Ishvara, in Puranjana's life, that friend was always there. But Puranjana ignored him. And the Brahmana in this case is the Guru saying, why are you grieving? Who are you? This is a story for us not to get lost in delaying moksha. That's right. Daksha related to dharma. Dhruva related to artha. Prithu related to kama. And now Puranjana is related to moksha. Don't get lost in delaying moksha. There's so many details in this katha, in this story, relating to time. You know who attacks Puranjana in his city? His name is Yavana. Yavana is actually death. Mrityu comes as Yavana. And one of Mrityu's, one of death's greatest assassins is Kala Putri. What does Kala Putri mean? The daughter of time. You know what the daughter of time looks like? Now, most people don't know. Gray hair. So many times that's described. Gray hair in old age is the daughter of time. So is the daughter of time attacking you? No, because of hair dye. We attack her back. And if not dye, at least Mandy, correct? We have natural ways to attack her back. But that is Kala Putri. And this Mrityu and Kala Putri, they use the Gandharvas to start to attack this city. The Gandharvas are day and night. At day, you're attacked by a certain group of Gandharvas, and at night, you're attacked by another group. So there's so much of symbolism. And I have to share one more insight before we wrap up this skanda. Prachina is engaged in a lot of karma, thinking that he's earning his way to moksha. Yes? We are the same way. I specifically reference young families who are ultra dedicated to their family, feeling that this is their sadhana and that they're finding their way to moksha. And I pray, I hope that this is the case. But if we're still focusing on my and I and not his and he, then we are prachina. We're engaged in a ritual that is not leading to moksha. Bhagavatam describes karma and karma phala like a dog. And this is a pretty rough example. I find that this happens more in India. What is described is that a dog goes from house to house, and sometimes that dog is fed, and sometimes that dog is kicked, isn't it? Karma's like that too. Sometimes we feel we're on top, and sometimes we feel like we're suffocating. Karma is like a load that you're carrying with your right shoulder, and what you do is you shift it to your left shoulder, and you feel so much relief. But all you've done is shifted that load from one part of you to another, isn't it? I do that with Shuka all the time. I hold him with here, and then I put him on my left arm and feel so much relief, but that weight is still there. I feel that relief, but I'm just tricking myself. He's still causing me a herniated disc. Karma is like a cloud. You know, people who engage in a lot of rituals, outside there's cloudiness in their eyes, right? Their eyes burn because all of that samagri. But that cloudiness has now entered their head and they can't think clearly. And the result of all of this is a perpetual feeling of tiredness. Is that relatable? That perpetual feeling of tiredness. I've been physically unwell since Remembrance Day, Veterans Day, November 11th. I've never felt so sleep deprived and food deprived over the last 2 weeks. Like my kids, they're taking so much of sleep and food because they're growing up also. And I know this will end. I'll become healthy, they'll become healthy. But at a deeper level, there's just that tiredness with college. Tiredness with dating, tiredness with working, tiredness with interacting, tiredness with serving, tiredness with studying. Many of you are thinking, in January, I'm going to give up Srimad Bhagavatam. Some will give up the gym, some will give up Srimad Bhagavatam. Why study the last 8 skandhas? I got the first 4. Prachina, he is hit hard by this story. He's finally realized that this story is about him. So he asks Rishi Narada, what happens if I die? And for us too, if you're 60, 70, 80 years old, and only now you're coming across Vedanta and Srimad Bhagavatam, you may be thinking, it's too late. I'm going to die, then what will happen? So Rishi Narada answers this question. This is the last shloka we will study in this skanda. I'm now on the 30th chapter, on the 19th shloka. This is such an uplifting message for all of us. What is really lovely about the Vaishnava Sampradaya, Srimad Bhagavatam relates to that, is there is perpetual support for householders. Remember this shloka. Griheshva vishatam chapi pumsam kushala karmanam madvartayataya manam na bandhaya grihamataha. Bhagavan Narayana shares with Prachetas. Do you all remember who Prachetas is? It is the 10 kids of Prachina. And I told you they all had the same name, Prachetas 1, Prachetas 2. How did you forget that? Who else do you know who has 10 kids all named the same? Just the awkwardness itself, you should remember. So Bhagavan Narayana is talking to the Prachetas and says, those householders, those grahastas that remember me, then their home never becomes a prison. They, na bandhaya, they are always free. So I'll elaborate on this. Prachina is asking, what happens if one dies and they don't realize moksha? So Rishi Narada says, the typical jiva, the typical human is insecure. Do you agree? The word used here is infirm, but the implication is they're insecure. And so if left alone, a jiva will not cultivate love for God, will not. Because they're so insecure, all they're going to do is try to fill in that insecurity, correct? With what? More shopping, more popularity. They will not cultivate this divinity. And I shared that with all of you in the assembly, that the fundamental purpose for all of us is to learn and love about God. Nothing will complete us. I'm referencing my own life as that. So it is through satsanga that one starts to cultivate learning about God, loving Bhagavan. That is what is moksha. So he's sharing with Prachina that now that you realize what I'm sharing with you, engage in satsang. Raja Parikshita, 1 week to live. What does he do? Engage in satsang. Before you want to become a parent, what should you do? Engage in satsang. After you become a parent, give up. More satsang is required then, yes? He's giving some more insights to Prachina. Whatever you feel is I, and I want you to really reflect on that. When you think and say I, what are you referring to? Your nationality, the lip balm you use? Whatever you feel is I, you become attached to. Yes? I don't think I am Ecuador, so I'm not attached to Ecuador. I think I'm a Canadian. That's why when I'm in America, I promote Canada. Yes? So whatever you feel is I, you get attached to. Whatever you're attached to, you act for, correct? You're not attached to that computer over there, so if someone drops mustard on it, whatever. But if someone drops mustard on your shoes or your book, you act to remedy that. And whatever you act towards, Again, that becomes I. So I, attachment, action, new I. If I keep acting for a Devi, as in I keep thinking about a woman, that's going to be my new I, correct? In this lifetime and the next lifetime. And I'll share a technicality with you here. How many of you have ever had a dream where the people and the happenings in that dream, you have no reference for that? You've never seen those people before. You've never gone through that experience in this lifetime. Have you had such a dream? I think so. Rishi Narada tells Prachina here, this proves that when a body dies, that those memories get carried on into another body. When you dream in that lifetime, you may not have seen those people. You may not have had those experiences, but that doesn't mean in a previous lifetime that you didn't go through that. The implication of this, again, is don't wait until next lifetime for moksha. That's actually a problem with Sanatana Dharma, is that we believe in reincarnation. Why do it this lifetime? Just wait for the next lifetime to do it. Yes? Now, one more detail about death. Do you know anyone who's experienced death before? Don't say yes, because if they've experienced death, they've not died, correct? That's what's so fascinating, is we're all afraid of death, but we don't know anyone who's ever experienced death. It's only an inference. But so many of our inferences are wrong. It's just speculation. Prachina is scared that he's going to die, so Rishi Narada says, like a caterpillar holding onto a blade of grass, will not let go of this blade of grass until they hold on to another. You've seen caterpillars, they're holding on to two blades of grass. You will not move on to, you will not leave this body until you've moved on to another body. Now, why this is important, too many times I hear, imagine Vivek is dead here. You'll all feel Vivek's Atman is hovering around here. So, be careful. He might go into you. He might torture you. But if I've left here, that means I've already entered another body. These details are important so we have less fear. I feel even in Sanatana Dharma, which is not supposed to be fear-based, we've now created so much fear specifically around death. So Rishi Narada essentially is telling Prachina is, you only live once. You only live once, so start acting for moksha. Start acting for moksha. As long as you think you're going to come back again and again and again, you will be a procrastinator. You will delay. So now coming to this specific dialogue. When Prachetas was engaged in tapa, then Bhagavan Narayana came and gave them darshan and told them two things. Two things so that you're never trapped. And the first is, be independent. These 10 are going to get married. They're going to expand. Their father also expanded, but he got deeply trapped. The kids should be better. You should also expand, but the key is to be independent. In Bhagavad Gita, you all remember chapter 11. That's where Bhagavan Krishna assumes his Vishwarupa. And so many thousands of beings keep going inside of his mouth and getting stuck in his teeth. Have you heard of that visualization? You know what that all is? Those teeth are yama. Teeth are yama. And getting caught in those teeth is raga, or attachment, or dependency. Just like teeth grind food, whenever we become dependent, obviously on drugs, alcohol, gambling, sports, prestige, public opinion, likes and dislikes, and you go on and on and on, aren't you grinded? You just get pushed around. First you're pushed there, then you're pulled here. So be independent and be devoted to the divine. Keep on listening to my katha. Keep being in satsang. Rishi Narada tells Prachina, Bhagavan Narayana tells Pracheta, there's a hunter who's always after you. That hunter is death. And that hunter has help in the form of wolves. Those wolves are time. Have you ever seen a National Geographic episode on wolves? How do wolves hunt? In packs. How else do wolves hunt? In a very stealth-like way, correct? You don't even know that there's a pack around you, and all of a sudden, one takes a bite out of you, another takes a bite out of you, another takes a bite out of you, and soon enough, there's enough bites out of you that the lead wolf, in this case, the hunter, destroys you. Powerful symbolism, no? Really lovely teaching. So many adults compare or complain, you know, the upcoming generation, they procrastinate. When you tell them to wash the dishes, they say later. When you tell them, you know, you should invest in money, they say, I'm still young, I can keep earning. I tell all of those young people, tell that older generation, get enlightened. That procrastination is way worse than investments or washing dishes. I'm going to read to you half a shloka. Tavad bhavat prasanganam sangasyano bhave bhave. And Bhagavan Narayana gives this guidance to Prachetas. You know what their prayer is? We are unconcerned about karma. Karma is a dog. Karma is a cloud. We're unconcerned about that. Every time we're born, may we be born in close association with your bhaktas. Because they know as long as they're in satsang, there will be no elation, there will be no depression. One will be balanced. Isn't that what a very, very good friend does for you? When you're all hyper, a very good friend will say, calm down. When we're deeply anxious, a good friend will say, everything will be all right. Brings in balance. The Prachetas share, we had one minor interaction with Bhagavan Shiva. That's where Rudra Gita was taught. And through this minor interaction, now you've come to us. You are the physician that ends the Bhavaroga. We had just studied that. That same message comes here. That one interaction with Bhagavan Shiva has led us to be free once and for all. And to complete this skanda. Do you all know all of the dialogues that are happening? If I give you an exit test right now, and if you get any of these wrong, you can't join the next skanda. Are any of you confident in this dialogue? Number one dialogue is between you and I. I'm asking you questions. You are giving me answers. Yes? And that is the truth, because if you were not present, I wouldn't be studying Bhagavata as much. Second dialogue, Raja Parikshita is asking Rishi Shuka. Rishi Shuka says, this Dialogue has happened before. Who is that dialogue between? Rishi Vidura is asking Rishi Maitreya. And Rishi Vidura and Rishi Maitreya says this dialogue has happened before also between Prachina is asking Rishi Narada. Or the Prachetas are asking Bhagwan Narayana. This is the last two shlokas of the skanda. I'll read it in English. So saying, everything that we just studied, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, Vidura took his leave of Maitreya and went to Hastinapura. Remember, he's on a yatra right now. He's found out Bhagavan Krishna has left his body. And instead of avoiding Hastinapura, where does he go? Back to Hastinapura. He goes back to his responsibilities to meet his relatives there. His mind overflowing with devotion. O king, Rishi Shuka speaking to Raja Parikshita, those who hear this account of the kingly lines devoted to the Lord with faith and devotion. Skanda 4 is Visarga. It's about humans, it is about special humans. Will attain. And for all of the people who have attended 80% of classes or more, this is what you get, okay? You will attain to longevity, which means you'll always be healthy. Wealth. You will never feel what you need is not with you. Fame. You will never feel insecure. Good luck. You will feel the context is always in your favor, not out of your favor. Prosperity. You will be one who can support others. And that's all actually fairly useless. And final, release. This last portion is on moksha. What if they said you won't get moksha? You get all of this stuff, but not moksha. Ha, suckers, I tricked you. And final, release. Iti chaturtaha skandaha samaptaha hari om tatsat. Oh.